Hi, I'm Kermit Steck, running for U.S. Senate here in Tennessee. This is a 4th of July message to all the veterans, all the freedom-loving, patriotic people of the United States. I want to begin with this out of Psalm 34, verse 12. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And after all, isn't that what the basic tenets of the United States are all about? Is our Christian heritage, the foundational principles that those men would be willing to fight for to separate from England. American Revolution was fought by God-fearing people to secure our freedoms and our unalienable rights, blessings that come from God. And I'd personally like to thank each veteran and their families for the sacrifices that have been made, because without that, we would have no freedom. So this brings me to the point, the question that has to be asked by everybody that's ever been a Christian is, or even not Christian, how did the men decide to fight when there's lots of scripture that we're told repeatedly says we're supposed to be peace-loving people, we're supposed to love thy neighbor and turn the other cheek? But yet at the same time there is example upon example of from the pulpit, those men that were called the Black Robed Regiment that came out and put on the uniform of Continental Army and fought. They didn't speak just words, they fought. They went to combat. Now, I've asked myself that question as a veteran myself, as an armor officer, as an enlisted man, and I had to ask that question. How can I do that? But Scripture never prohibits combat. There's actually examples that I've found that talk about the priests of the Old Testament, Jedediah, that instituted putting the king back on the throne, the 7-year-old boy back on the throne. In 2 Kings chapter 11 specifically addresses that. Taking King David's shields and swords from the temple where they were kept and arming the men that were going to protect the king, taking an oath of allegiance to the king, saying, God save the king. It's reiterated in 2 Chronicles chapter 23. Then there's examples of Nehemiah where the priests and the Levites helped build the gates of the city. Notice I said city, not the temple. They were in the secular part of the community, not in the sacred part. Then there's examples in the book of Esther where Haman tried to destroy all the Jews throughout the kingdom. Yet the king saw fit at the end of the book of Esther to give them, the Jewish people, the right to self-defense. And they destroyed those that came against them. And I believe these are biblical examples that throughout the generations we have forgotten or not been taught. But our forefathers knew these things. And unfortunately they're not taught in the public school system because of political correctness. They've been censored out. But I want you to think about those scripture verses that I just told you about and look at them. Because these weren't just the laymen of the church, these were the leadership of the church that took on the leadership roles of regimental commanders, company commanders, militia commanders. And I'll tell them to you again. In 2 Kings chapter 11, 2 Chronicles chapter 23, throughout the book of Nehemiah in the 3rd chapter, and particularly in the book of Esther, just check those out. There's other examples in Scripture, but those ones specifically address this. And once again, I just want to say thank you to all the family members of those that are still fighting and defending the American way of life, because there's nothing wrong with being American. There's right about being an American. And with your help, and with God's help, we'll secure those blessings to our next generations, put this nation back on the right track, and begin it fresh and anew, putting the hearts and minds of the young men and women in the country back on the right path. Thank you so much. God bless.